Welcome to episode 1 of Digital Innovation Talks. My name is Sasa Straus and I will be your host for today. I am part of Innovation Technology Cluster, which is also the founder of the DIH AgriFood. Digital Innovation Talks is the theme of our AfriConEU Vidcast Series. And for the ones wondering what a vidcast is, it is simply a podcast that contains video content. So, the series includes 12 monthly episodes for April 2022 to till March 2023, and each episode will explore a different topic related to the EU African digital innovation hubs and startup ecosystems. For the ones who watch us for the first time, AfriConEU is a project that aspires to create the first Trans-Continental Networking Academy to support African and European digital innovation hubs in capacity building, knowledge sharing, networking, collaboration, joint project, and venture development. The project has received funding from the European Union's Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Programme and is implemented from February 2021 until January 2024. It involves 4 partners from Africa and 7 partners from Europe. So let's start. The topic of our episode today is gender inclusion in digital innovation. Let me introduce you to our guest for today, Eunice Baguma Ball, Director and Head of Programs of African Technology Business Network. Welcome, Eunice. Tell us
Thank
something.
you.
Tell us something about you and your company, please.
Thanks, Sasha. I'm really excited to be here today to be kicking off the Vidcast series. So my name is Eunice Baguma Ball. I'm one of the directors and the head of programs at ATBN. And ATBN is a social enterprise. We're based in the UK. And our mission is to build a more inclusive and impactful tech and innovation ecosystem in Africa by building synergies between Europe and Africa. So a lot of the work we've been doing is around opening doors and providing access for innovators and startups and organizations in Africa to access networks, funding, and opportunities within Europe. We also do capacity building, connecting stakeholders across different sectors, across academia, doing research, implementing programs. And I'm very excited to be on the talk today because one of our key pillars really is gender inclusion. So we want to see tech and innovation helping to drive gender equity. We want to see women more involved in leading the innovation ecosystem in Africa because we know that is the way that we can have a greater impact and move towards the sustainable development goals.
So, as you're a key expert on this field, you wouldn't have some problem with answering question, because during the last few weeks we got in touch with our community and followers and we collected some interesting questions for you, Eunice. So let's see what the audience wants to know. So, question first: is the sector of digital innovation hubs inclusive and accessible for women in general?
So I think I wish I could say a resounding yes to this answer. I think for me, that is one of the things that drives me is a vision towards a future in which I will be asked this question and we will say yes. But unfortunately, the reality now is it's still no. And there's quite a number of factors we can look at, and I know we'll be talking about that in the conversation coming on. But just to give you a bit of an idea, one of the studies that has looked into the startup and sort of digital innovation ecosystems, I think it's a report by Brighter Bridges, has found that women-led digital innovation startups are only receiving 3% of the investment. They received only 3% of the investment between 2013 and 2021, and this is billions. And I think about 70% of this went to only male-led teams, right? So that just gives you an idea of how not yet, how much women are not yet really breaking through in the ecosystem, not only in terms of not receiving funding, but also just the representation in general is still quite low. And the question is why, right? Because at the end of the day, tech is just a tool. It's helping to solve problems. It's really helping to create access and improve, create solutions that impact everyone. I think in the pandemic, we've seen this more than ever. If you didn't have access to digital technologies, you are not able to access education, you're not able to access healthcare. So it's really, kind of highlighted how important it is that digital technology is inclusive, and the creation of that digital technology needs to be inclusive if the solutions are going to be inclusive. So yeah, so unfortunately the answer is no. But I think there's factors to that, and there's also like things that I think that are being done that can help, but I think there's a lot more to be done.
And you, if specifically regarding Europe and Africa, do you believe that the field of digital innovation is male dominated or not?
Yeah, I think this underrepresentation, this the challenges that women are facing in being able to participate and benefit and sort of be included within the digital innovation ecosystem is not only within Africa. It's a global problem. So when I told you the number of, the investment raised by female startup entrepreneurs in Africa is 3%. Globally, it's still 2% or even less. So it is a global problem, and I think as somebody who's worked in both ecosystems, so I've worked in the tech ecosystem in Africa, and I've also I've lived in London now for over 8 years, and been working within the innovation ecosystem here as well. It is it is both sides. It is definitely still a challenge, and particularly also within tech, there's very certain sectors like fintech, for example, that particularly in Africa receive the most funding, that are even doubly more male dominated. So it's not just that it's technology, it's also within a certain sector, whether it's like fintech, or let's say you go into a technology that's being used, let's say in like construction. So it's like dual, sort of male domination. And I think that's the challenge, is then how do you break that? Because it's like technology is replicating already where there were already significant gaps, and making that even, a bigger, making the gap even bigger.
And the main challenges women face in the digital labor market, not only in the sector that are traditionally male dominated, as you said, but also in other sectors.
So this is an interesting one. I think there's a lot of factors, and I'll speak from my experience with ATBN. So we've done projects in over 6 African countries, and we have members of our network across the region. I'll also speak from my own experience. I recently did a master's in social innovation at the University of Cambridge, and actually did my master's research on understanding the challenges for female entrepreneurs in digital ecosystems. I focused on Uganda as a case study. I'm originally from Uganda. And I think based on my experience and based on my findings from my research, one of the key things is really rooted in cultural factors which affect the pipeline. So I think about the challenges from two sides. One, there's a challenge of getting in the first place. As girls choose subjects that don't necessarily are not encouraged or supported to do STEM subjects, for example, which affects their ability, their relationship with technology, their confidence with technology, or even just the attitudes. What toys do people buy for children at home? They say, oh, the thing, the when you're fixing something, creating something, the robots, or this is for the boys, and then for the girls, it's certain things that are based around sort of gender norms and gender roles. So the attitudes start from there, and then you go into school, and it's maths or this or IT or computer science is more for boys, or there's that expectation, and then those attitudes keep getting on and on. And as you go further on in your career, you have fewer women choosing STEM subjects, and then so there's the pipeline of getting in, right? Those cultural factors and gender roles which play a role. And then when you look at actually even when they're in, so when you look at from the point where you have lots of girls doing computer science, there's more girls doing computer science and mathematics today, obviously, than like 10 or 20 years ago. But then when you start to look at retention, so once they get into the sector, they're working in the digital sector, or they're trying to do a startup, then there's another set of challenges of you're in, but then the space, the sector is not conducive, has not been designed to understand the needs of women. There's a lot of gender bias. So for example, if I look specifically at like the digital innovation startup ecosystem, there's a very, very specific culture that has emerged around it that's very like fast paced, high growth. You have to almost like sort of work constantly, or you have this idea of you do accelerator programs, and you have to do 48-hour hackathons, and you spend the night at the hub. And I remember speaking to entrepreneurs in Uganda, and they're saying, I can't attend the hackathon because I have to go back home and I have to worry about my safety. Or I'm not very good at pitch events. Pitch events, you have to, it always goes to who is the most confident, who can talk the biggest game, and not really about what the real plan is for your business. So we've created like an ecosystem or a digital space that's not necessarily letting women shine or tailoring to their other responsibilities that they have at home, as either as mothers or even just the way that we've been socialized to exist, right? So you don't have, it's not very welcoming of sort of feminine traits. It's seen as weak, or you're not being very ambitious, or you're not being pushy enough. So there's quite a few, maybe I've gone a bit too deep because I did research into this, but there are challenges both entering and once they're in, creating that space that allows them to grow and thrive. Really, that there's work that needs to be done on both sides.
So you are assuming that the challenges that the women face in Africa and in Europe and in the whole world is basically the same, or you found, because you work on the both sides, some differences in challenges?
I think they're rooted in the very same things. I think in some places, maybe in Europe, there's been a lot more progress on certain things. So, for example, when we talk about like the gender norms and roles, when I did my research in Uganda, you find that it's still very, very much traditional thinking where you by a certain age you're expected to be married, you're expected to have children, and all of that. While I think in Europe that age has moved on a bit further, so maybe women have a bit more of a runway in terms of for them to sort of go on and establish their career. So I found that in many ways there's differences, but there's very, very many similarities, because it ultimately rooted in this in how women are valued within society, in the roles that society has created for women. And I think that there's different societies are kind of moving at different paces on this, but ultimately the challenges are rooted in very, very similar things, which is why we are seeing a very similar figure that even though you have like the US or Europe that's very advanced, you're still seeing less than 5% of startup investment going to female-led startups, right? So I will speak based on like my experience personally. I know Ugandan culture, and obviously having done my research there, but what I've seen in Europe is it's very there's very similar challenges.
I see in myself also. And what's your company, ATBN, doing for gender inclusion in digital innovation?
So one of the things we've done, so we've been on a bit of a journey on this. So one of the things we did is we ran an accelerator program for young female entrepreneurs called Her Future Africa. We did this in Ghana. And our goal was saying, let's get more young women interested in technology. One of the challenges we saw around was that when there were tech programs or programs to support you to set up a tech business, they always like used language that was not very inclusive or not very open particularly for young women who may not see themselves as tech entrepreneurs because they are not seeing those role models, right? So they would say, you have a tech startup, or you're a tech ninja, do you have, so we created an accelerator program where we said, do you have a problem in your community that you want to solve? Do you have a business idea that you want to scale using technology? We kind of changed the language. So it was about your business and your idea, and technology took the backseat. Technology was like, you come to us and we'll help you get the tools and the technology you need to help your business to grow, or to help you to solve that problem for your community that you see. So we really wanted to create an accelerator, an incubator program that was welcoming to women, because it put the problem solving and the business first rather than the tech, and therefore it helped attract more women who may not necessarily see themselves as tech, because you don't need to be able to code or necessarily be a computer engineer to have a tech startup. You just need to have the solid business idea and be able to validate it. So that's one of the things we did. And the other thing we did is we published a book called Founding Women. Again, around you, when I talked about the challenges of getting in and then staying in the getting in, I think one of the biggest challenges we see is the lack of role models. So it's very hard for you to aspire to something you've never ever seen before. You've never ever seen a woman successfully raise millions or successfully scale their technology company across Africa. So we published this book that had 20 women from 7 African countries who are working and leading technology businesses across the region. And this, we continue to see people sort of reaching out to us and saying how that has inspired them. It inspired them to start their business, inspired them to see themselves as somebody who can work in digital innovation. So that's just a few of the things. And we do a lot of research and work and training around gender lens innovation, getting companies to think more about the needs of women and how including women in their process, in their labor force, and in the design of their solutions can have a greater impact and greater economic benefit as well. There's a big business case for it as well.
And what would you say, what was the most interesting topic or project a woman was brought forward?
So this is a difficult one because there are so many. I'm always inspired by just the women that and the stories I read about. But I think one of the ones I will mention that I think always stays with me and I always follow her journey is Temi from Nigeria, who runs a company called Lifebank. So they use digital technologies to help. She was solving the problem that a lot of people were dying because there wasn't enough blood. You'd go to a hospital and there would be no blood. You need a blood transfusion. Maybe there was blood in the next hospital, but this hospital didn't know that. So she created a company that created a digital platform where it maps everywhere in the country that there is certain blood and what blood type. And then it also created kind of like an Uber where it can be delivered. So you're on the way to the hospital, they know you need this blood type. It's 2 kilometers away. Somebody is going to go on a motorbike and deliver it, and it's there ready for you by the time you come. It's also a way to map and see what blood is low and get people to come in and donate. So it's solved a huge challenge. They've scaled to more African countries now. It's creating a real impact, and she's just one of those people that I really, really keep rooting for. So it just gives you the impact of how many Temis around Africa are there that are being locked out from lack of funding, lack of support, and look at the impact we could have if they were all enabled.
And how many saved lives actually
Exactly.
we can have. And so do you have any advice for women in working in digital innovation hubs?
Yeah, I think that one is it's very hard to exist in a space that's not designed around you. You always come across that friction and that feeling you're in a room and just an interesting fact, it was told, there's a research that found that even when women pitch for investment, they get asked different questions. Like you ask questions about, it's already assumed like you're going to fail. So you ask questions about how are you going to prevent this from happening? How are you going to stop this person taking your market share? They ask preventative questions, while men are asked like growth questions. Oh, like how are you going to scale to this market? How will you get these new products and customers? It's like you're in a space which is almost like not rooting for you. And I think one of the advice I'd say is that you being in that space is very important to stay for the others who are going to come after you. So one is like hang in there, because we really need more women to stay and change the space and make it better for those who are coming in. Two, I would say that it's understand that the system or the ecosystem itself also has problems. I think a lot of the time when we go into the digital innovation ecosystem and space, as women, we're made to feel like something is wrong with us. So there's always an emphasis on fixing us, like be more confident, be more this. You need to learn how to pitch better. But wait, you're being asked different questions. So I think being confident in the knowledge, like something needs to change in the ecosystem itself, not just me. Yes, we have work to do on ourselves, but also the environment needs to change to us. So having that ecosystem to demand, those rights, that, you have a right to have a family and also be able to work as a successful entrepreneur. So demanding those things, and also just continuing to shine our light, because you never know who is watching around, and we really need those role models. So I think those are my two things really, is hang in there, keep shining your light so that you're a role model for others, but also no, it's not you that's broken. The system is broken, and we need to work together to fix it. And I think that's quite a comfort, because I think a lot of women end up leaving because they think, I'm not cut out for this, or I'm not good enough for this. But no, that the system is also wrong, and that's what we really need to change.
So we must step together and fight stereotypes.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you so much, Eunice. So that was episode 1 of Digital Innovation Talks, the AfriConEU Vidcast Series. Thanks so much for watching, and do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, and stay up to date. Stay tuned for the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.